How many
Yeah.
times have you seen those black men on the S-curl boxes? You don't know their names.
No. It could be Latravius.
It could be Latravius.
You know, it could be Levant.
Yeah, we should find them and give them their flowers this month.
Small doses, self-help from the hip. Small doses, we're talking that shit. Small doses, and keeping it real. Small doses, with me and Nana Seals.
It's so funky. Welcome. Y'all, we about to have a fun time. I know we've had a lot of like kind of intense and serious episodes here at Small Doses Podcast back to back. And that is sometimes just the way it is, right? That's just kind of like the rhythm and the time we're in. I know that I've talked about just how like I'm in like a very depressive, intensive space these days. And so it's natural that the conversations would kind of like be reflective of that. Nonetheless, I am very conscious of the fact that we all need our pockets of joy. And today I'm giving you a cargo pants level of pockets of joy, okay? We're taking it back to the cargo pants of the 90s when folks was definitely walking around looking like hamsters with nuts in their cheeks, but at their knee level, okay? It's full of joy because we have corporate Erin and the brilliance of corporate Erin as an existing satirical character. The reason why we wanted to do this is because I know so many people have experienced this character, corporate Erin, created by Lisa Beasley, and said that they both love her and hate her. And I am in the same boat because she really represents everything that we know about corporate and like what it is to be in this corporate space. And it's like you're watching her and simultaneously triggered by it, but also affirmed. Because by her doing this character in a satirical fashion, she is letting you know you not crazy. They sound like this. They be saying this. They be acting like this. They be wanting you to do this. And all of that comes through in this interview. And I need y'all to know, this is the longest she's ever been in this character. You're going to be hearing me and you're like, is Amanda in character? I kind of had to just give in because if I don't, then it just is like me shooting her down. And now it's no longer like, it's no longer an actual exchange. It just is me interviewing Marianne Williamson again. So I didn't want to give you that. And I had to do mind power control because I had to think, what does Amanda want Lisa to have corporate Erin give to the world in these questions? And I hope that we did that successfully because I hope you have just as good a time listening to this as we had recording this. And when I say a good time, I want to also point out, anytime you hear radio silence, it's because we're breaking character because we are cracking up and we got to get back into the conversation. And as two Black women who have had to deal with corporate bullshit in a myriad of spaces, you know, particularly in the artistic space at present, you know, it was really just dope connecting with Lisa and getting to do this. And it felt very, for me, fulfilling because I've been missing this part of my work, like the performer part of my work. And it's not that I miss acting in shows because I don't want to go back to that corporate space. If y'all think that it's not corporate at HBO and at NBC, etc., all these places are corporations that have a studio. It's not a studio with a corporation running it. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? AJ, does it make sense?
Yes, ma'am. It makes sense.
Okay. It makes sense. So therefore, here we are. I give to you this new episode of Small Doses Podcast, Side Effects of Corporate, featuring corporate Erin. Enjoy. It is a water cooler of deliciousness. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here at Small Doses Podcast. You know, this is a topic that I really have never really broached broached,
Brunch.
because I feel like corporate for me has always been so like just out of reach, just like out of reach. And when I came across you and your commentary and your lived experience, I said, this is somebody who can connect the dots for us, right? When I did my comedy special, I Be Knowin', I had a joke in there that was less of even a joke as much as it was just a point of relatability, where I spoke about the proliferation of white women adding people to emails that don't need to be added, right? The confluence of the CC. And when I saw you in your space speaking about, the existence of corporate, I said, this is somebody who does that. This is somebody who does that, but is not a white woman. And so I just became so curious. And you are somebody that I feel like is very rooted in the corporate lifestyle. So welcome to the show. And I guess my first question would be, Erin, how did you find corporate to be the home for you?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm a big fan. I saw the special AB Noan, and I will say there was some critical feedback that I had just for that part right there, okay, concerning the CCs, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is kind of necessary. Don't you love it when you look at an email and you can scroll down and see all those lines going across to show how many people replied, and you can just keep scrolling and
Right.
scrolling, and you can
Right.
don't you love just being in the thick of a thread?
It feels a bit overwhelming for me, but I can see how some people would feel that that's like, it's home, it's
Yeah,
like
I
they're
love
being
it.
encased, right? It
Yeah,
looks like
because
sandbags, like being stacked on top of you.
Yeah, because sometimes the line turns from black to purple, and I think that's really cool.
I do. I do think that that is a spectrum that some people do exist on.
Yeah. Now you ask, how did I find corporate to
Yeah.
be
Or
home?
or better yet, how did corporate find you, right? Because I feel like it's a calling.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a calling. It was also kind of instilled in me ever since I was little. So I legally cannot talk about my parents, but I can talk about, as much as I can. But our home is kind of pretty much structured similar to a company, family dinners, similar to like a boardroom meeting. And
Okay.
so the way I talk is kind of like the normal way of talking, which is why I'm teaching more people to talk like me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
there was always just kind of like a path laid out for me. And I said, this is a great path. I'm going to circle back and follow up on it. So it says, do all of your school, go to college. When you're in college, network, and then your family can help you establish a career. And then when you establish your career, you can kind of stay there and kind of work within the system to kind
Yeah.
of keep rising above in your career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you got into the corporate space, what is it about it that you feel like serves productivity?
That's a very interesting question. Well, you have, depending on how large the company is, there's a
Mhm.
lot of moving parts. So if all of the parts are moving the way that they're
Mhm.
supposed to be moving, then that means
Mhm.
we're driving the business forward. So when I think of pivotal key players and I think of people who drive the business forward, you have these different departments kind of all working with each other, and there's so many initiatives going on at once. That's kind of like peak level productivity where you're not just
Yeah.
working on one thing, you're working on so many different things, you almost don't even know what you're working on. So there's emails that's happen throughout the days. There's aligning that has to happen. There's
Mhm.
shifting. There's procurement teams. There's procurement teams for certain departments. So if a department needs something, well, who are they going to communicate to? There's something in the system for that, and there are people that carry that out. So the whole thing is kind of like one big old productive machine.
Do you feel like there's elements of that machine that are hampering productivity?
I think it's when individuals don't want to adhere to what the machine needs. So if you think about just like any other machine, take your car. It needs oil, it needs gasoline, it needs brake fluids, it needs brakes. But let's say if you wake up one morning and say, "Hey, you know what? I could bring the brakes to the car today, but I'm not feeling it. I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to take a mental health day and I'm going to
Right.
put the brakes on everything." Well, that kind of can stall the situation. And before you know it, people are driving the business maybe too forward, and you were there to say, hey, is anybody going to have eyeballs on this? If we don't have you there because you're normally pumping the brakes, well, then
Right,
that's going
right.
to kind of clog up the machine kind of thing. So I think people can disrupt the system, not allowing that machine to work properly.
What about people in management? Can they ever disrupt the system?
Well, naturally, we are disruptors. Okay. So, just by very nature of us kind of, being in this pivotal role, we kind of
Right.
disrupt what it means to say, hey, who's over here doing this? Who's over here doing this? We've kind of made overseeing cool again because like nobody
Oh,
wants to be in the position of like, I oversee people,
right,
but it's
right,
very necessary so we can make sure we see everything that's going on to make sure all of these moving parts. Because if you're in this department, you may not have any kind of purview into what's going on over here.
right.
So it's going to take somebody to say, hey, I just pinged so and so. They know that this is going on. Aren't you glad I'm here to kind of help mitigate any kind of future issues?
Well, it's interesting that you say oversee because one of the key tools for the overseers during slavery was a whip.
Oh,
But you guys aren't allowed to use whips now.
no,
So,
no.
what would you say is the new, like, proverbial? Getting it back, getting it back. What would you say? What would you say is the new proverbial whip that is used by manager overseers overseeing management in corporate of
Oh,
our new era?
okay.
In a,
And
in a neo in a neo-colonialist era.
yeah, and I can definitely understand kind of the layering and mapping of historical context of like how we got to this moment. But I do want to be clear, there are no slaves that work for me here. Okay, so I just kind of want to make sure legal
Clarify.
told me to say, hi, we don't have slaves here. We do pay
Okay.
people. We did kind of borrow from that overseer model because it kind of works for corporate. Okay. And it's kind of the only model we've kind of been following in America. And so even right down to the way that we kind of like do our spreadsheets and keep tabs on,
Mm.
different employees and documents and things like that.
Mm.
That system was developed then, and we just
Right.
kind of added some tech to it. So there are some benefits to, what slavery has given. They've given America the management system that we have. So I'm glad we got rid of the whole like actual slaves being slave. I'm glad we started to
Yeah.
pay people,
Yeah.
but the role of the manager has kind of always been kind of very pivotal to making sure that the mission is being driven forward. So when I think of like what could the proverbial whip be, well, now there are a lot of, measures put in place. So we don't physically make people do the work.
Exactly.
We're not
Right.
chaining anybody to a desk. That's your choice if you want to, because some people do that to kind of build in a discipline measure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
I think some people think, well, okay, how am I being punished if I'm not doing the work? Well, you might look at it like maybe it's a performance plan that'll kind of whip you into action.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's, in your performance reviews, it's kind of like the proverbial, did you,
Uh,
are you? So
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
could say maybe that's probably kind of one of the layering ways. Probations, anything like that, anything that kind of
Mm.
leads up to a termination, possibly. So those type of measures, I can say anything that kind of puts the employee back into the main frame of, oh, we gotta perform.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, it's really profound when you said that slavery actually gave us the management system here in America.
yeah,
If
yeah.
it ain't broke, don't try to emancipate it.
I mean, there's a lot of bad history out there, and it's just kind of good that we can kind of turn it around and use it in a positive way.
Well, I feel like that's something that corporate really tries to instill in folks, right? Like how to always see the silver lining, how to make the lemons into lemonade. What are ways in which you work with your employees to manage negative or difficult situations and turn them into positive?
Well, the first thing is to always approach work with an extrovert mindset. Okay. Show
Okay.
that you're very happy to be there. Okay. smile a lot.
Can you give me an
Okay,
example?
so for example, if you're hopping
Yeah.
onto a meeting, let's say this is your 7th meeting of the day, and
Yep.
everybody in the meeting that's already there, you've
Yeah.
also been in meetings with them all day.
Right.
So when you
Right.
pop onto that 7th call, we kind of take it for granted that we've seen these people all day, and we just kind
Yeah.
of hop on the call and say, "Okay, guys, in here. Okay, so it's been a long day, right?" No, no. You always want to pop on and say, "Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here. Let me introduce myself." And then we can go around the room. Every call that I'm on, we always introduce ourselves, even if we just got off of a call all together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You know what?
enthusiasm.
But that enthusiasm it really plants the seed. It keeps you connected. I remember when I went on safari in Kenya on the Masai Mara, and after day one,
Yeah.
so I remember when I remember wait. Lisa, I love you and I don't even know you. I just want you to be clear.
I love
Okay.
you too, Amanda. Don't feel like we already know each other like well.
Yes. You are bringing joy to me that I have been lacking for weeks, and I want you to know that. I ventured on a group trip to Kenya, the Masai Mara, the lands of the Masai Mara people.
Ew.
And again, I was on a group trip, right? So it's me, it's 15 other individuals, 15 other personalities, okay? And we're in the trucks and we're trucking along on the path and we're seeing the antelope, we're seeing the gazelles, we're seeing the zebra. And then you can see lions and bear. Well, there's no bears in Kenya, but you're seeing elephants, etc. But by day 2, the group said, more zebras, more antelope, more gazelles. And it just made me think about what you're saying about the Zooms, because it's like, no, we're coming back into the Zoom with the animals and the gazelles and the zebras. And they are going to be just as happy to see us today as they were yesterday. And we need to greet them with the same enthusiasm.
Exactly. I'm going to take that anecdote, kind of reframe it, kind of map it on as my own, and begin to use that in front of my calls. Because you're correct.
It's just wildlife as real life. That's all it is.
That's
Wildlife is real life.
That's a t-shirt.
You know what? We could actually, I will actually, when I come and speak at the conference for the company that you work for, what's the name of it again?
The company, well, we're McManagers Logistics.
So I was asked to come do a diversity DEI program for.
I recommend it, yo.
Thank you so much. And so I've put together some notes, and I can't wait to come out there and just really talk to them about just like diversity, diversion, divertisement, and
the big DDD.
Yeah. And just the ways in which we can, diversity, equity, inclusion, everything. Right? Yeah. Not just people. How do we diversity, equity, inclusion, dogs, right? How do we bring dogs into the workplace?
Yes,
how do we bring
dogs in the workplace?
More dogs in the workplace. Yeah. How do we bring cats? Cats purr at a megahertz for healing. How does that help us in what we're doing in terms of our
working on an initiative? This is barking up a tree, to use a dog analogy. I had an initiative. There were some people that were saying they were stressed at home. And I said, well, come into the office. But if I tell them that cats are in there and that cats are healing, they can get their healing at the out. So take your mental health day at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Revolutionary.
Yeah.
Revolutionary.
Really, truly innovating the workspace.
What are ways? So I'm sorry I cut you off with my my anecdote in the motherland. So you were saying that there are ways in which you feel like people can bring positivity into the workplace, or change a negative to a positive. And one of the first things you said was about enthusiasm. Do you have any others that you can give us? Because I know there's people listening. They're in corporate and they are finding themselves having to really show up.
Yeah. You gotta you gotta show up. You got to show up. If it's about getting up earlier, whatever you need to do to show up and be your best selves. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people, there's this term in the industry of diversity and inclusion when, it was really kind of popularized in 2020 and companies made a lot of promises, one of the phrases was bring your whole self to work, bring
Yeah.
your best self to work. Now, what you're going to have to realize is the company has a version that is defined as best or whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be in line with that. So
With that. Okay.
for example,
Okay.
Lisa Beasley was telling me a story of how she said, hey, this company said I can show up as my whole self. So she would show up to these pivotal work meetings with like smoking a blunt in her mouth. And we
Yeah.
said, whoa, that's not your best self. And she said, well, it is. It is. So
It-
like who's to say? Well, the company can tell you who your best self is. So if you want to know who your best or whole self is, think about what company you're at, see what they want your best and whole self to be, and map that onto yourself.
Ah. That really feels like that feels difficult to do.
Mm,
Yeah. But I feel
hmm.
like if you're really someone who cares about the company, then you'll do it regardless.
Yeah, it's really all about the company missions, the company mission and values, and everything should be laddering up to that.
When we talk about company missions and values, what is the company mission and value of management logistics?
Well, we have our mission kind of in the hands of a third party Black copywriter to kind of help us rewrite our mission
Ah,
right now. So
yeah,
I can
yeah,
tell
yeah.
you that our old mission was just to fulfill the mission of the company with values and goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really great to have like a nice tight sentence, maybe 1 to 3 sentences. And you want
Mm-hmm.
to kind of
Mm-hmm.
try to stay away from anything specific. And the more you can use the word mission in the mission statement, the better.
Staying away from anything specific. It sounds like our Constitution.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, yeah,
They were
yeah.
they were specific about the right to bear arms.
They were specific about everything but what Black people should be given.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about the Constitution a lot lately.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah, I just thought that it was interesting that here we have this chance to kind of build this pivotal document and right out the gate, the first few things are we can have guns and say whatever we want. I
Yeah.
think that's very interesting for a company structure,
Yeah.
someone who loves structure. If that's kind of like the basis of the foundation, I just think
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I didn't see the word mission in there. So, I think it's the priorities of the Constitution, I think do need to be looked at.
Yeah. I think, well, you said it best when you said of the company, because this is a company. It's not really a country.
Yeah.
And so you, as somebody who is so just adept at understanding company structures, it's fascinating that you see something wrong with that because you know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think maybe I should kind of work on maybe rewriting the Constitution to kind of fit a company structure since that is what it is. A lot of people don't know that America is a business
Yeah. Yeah.
and we as constituents are kind of more so employees of this business because if we don't do our part, the business kind of tanks. And when the business tanks, we go all over the world kind of searching for some help to kind of put us back on track. So it's kind of similar to when a company is going under, they go to their friends and say, hey, do you have $1 billion I can borrow? Do you have $1 billion I can borrow? And sometimes your friend doesn't have $1 billion you can borrow, so you take it.
Taking it. I mean, I'm curious, as a Black woman working as a Black woman working,
Okay,
I
I'm
just
ready
like to
for it.
side note that in high school, Andrea Schwartz would actually do that for real at Dr. Phillips High School. She literally would do that with Black people and Brazilians. And literally one time was like, oh my God, I went to Universal and there were so many Brazilians that I couldn't even believe it. And I was like, did you just blank out Brazilians?
Brazilian. Wow.
So as a Black woman in corporate, where do you feel like you are an asset in a unique way that maybe your Hawite counterparts are are not?
Well, there's more spaces that I can be in that they can't be in. So that
Okay.
makes me an asset to the company. And it kind of also allows me to kind of open up and speak to other groups. I think the most fun part is I still kind of hold the missions and values of the company down to a T, similar
Mm.
to the people who were in my position before me, regardless of color. So it's not that I'm perpetuating anything, but I
Yeah.
like to think that if I stick true to the structure, there's no surprises and the company can still be moving forward. But this time, if you have kind of like a Black pivotal partner there, I can maybe get some more like Black eyeballs on things in the office. I can
Yeah.
kind of go to like, the other women of the office and rah rah sis boom bah over there.
Okay.
I can kind of use my identity to kind of occupy certain spaces to fulfill the mission.
I wonder about certain situations. Had someone like you been in the room, what would you do? So I'd love to just run some scenarios by you to hear kind of like what your expertise would have added to that was lacking.
Oh, absolutely.
So when Walmart decided to create products for Juneteenth,
Yeah.
and they said, we're going to make an ice cream for Juneteenth that is a Kool-Aid fried chicken waffle flavor. Had you been in the room when this was ideated,
Yeah.
where do you feel like you would have added or taken away from that type of thinking?
Yeah. Now, do have a clarifying question. Was this one flavor rolled into one, or were these three
Yes.
different flavors? Okay. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. I would have been there as a kind of pivotal voice to say, hey, you said Kool Aid, fried chicken, and watermelon?
No, that actually seems like it would be more logical, but it was waffles.
Oh, waffles. Okay. Chicken and waffles and Kool Aid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's just okay. I would have been there to kind of speak to the flavor profile. Okay. So in those meetings, sometimes there's pushback from the community, the
Yeah.
consumers that said, hey, who was in that room? And
Mhm.
often there is not someone that looks like me in that room.
Exactly.
So the expectation is that someone in like me would come into the room if I were there and say, hey, just don't do this at all. This is a miss. But with this one, I see an opportunity. Okay.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah,
Okay.
you gotta think about the flavor profile of that. So, when I eat chicken and waffles, it's accompanied by syrup sometimes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I often don't drink another sweet beverage following that because when you do 2 sweet things in your mouth, it kinda cancels it out. So, that's just not a smart flavor profile that they were putting forward. Okay, so I would have done a more conducive, constructive meal that kind of automatically all goes together. So, it would have made sense and most of the Kool-Aid, if it wasn't clarified, if it was red or grape, which I also like to pinpoint out that one is a color, one is a flavor, but we still acknowledge them as 2 different
Yes.
things.
Yes.
I think to be that pivotal voice in the room is important. Still get the initiative out to the Black people for the,
Yeah.
Black people die,
Yeah.
but stay true to the tenets of what that culture would actually really want, regardless if they want it or not. Sometimes they don't know that they want Kool-Aid and chicken flavored things all together.
Right.
Sometimes the
Right.
company has to tell them that. And sometimes that imagination does come from, our white counterparts. And that's
Oh,
just them trying to, try.
you know what? And I guess who are we? Who are we to stop them from trying?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
who are we?
I
I
would
mean,
encourage people to say, hey, where is the money going to that you're making all these products for? Or is there an initiative within the company that the funds, or is it just going all up to the same kind of wealthy person there? Is Sam getting it all?
got you. I got another one for you.
Yeah.
So, Vogue magazine, which we do know is a company,
Yeah.
they recently published a piece that credited football player Travis Kelce with the fade haircut.
Yeah.
And so this is another situation where I said, you know what? There wasn't an Erin Throlopoulos in the
Yeah.
room. Actually, can you just tell me, Throlopoulos is such a unique name. Is it Greek?
No, so actually, I'm sorry, I cannot legally talk about my parents, and that would expose them. But I will say that my great 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 grandfather, he used to throw up a lot, and a lot of my past when I was younger, I didn't like working, and anytime I wanted to work, I would throw up.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Got
for a
it.
long period of time, work made me want to throw up.
Interesting. So it's kind of like how like there's people whose last name is Milner because they were Milners. Your
Oh,
last name is Throlopoulos because y'all were throw upping a lot.
yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
look at I mean, just the histories and etymologies of our genealogies, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just hurling.
So much rich culture.
Yeah, just hurling, pun intended, through history, through
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
So, what would you have said had you been lanyarded up
Yeah.
in the room
Okay.
when that editor said to the corporates, at that conference table, this is going to be my piece that I'm going to contribute to this month's Vogue magazine. Travis Kelce as the creator of the fade. What would have been like a corporate, acceptable way for the Black person in the room to say, you're out of your mind?
Okay. Well, I don't know if I would have said it that way,
Right.
but what I would have done is I would have came into the room and I would have said, "Hey, everybody." I would have looked everybody in the eyes. "Thank you guys so much for being a pivotal partner. My name is Corporate Erin. I'm the manager for the manager logistics for management make management." And I just kind of wanted to kind of call us all in to kind of think about the critical ways in which we're kind of approaching the situation. Okay. And then I would give everybody time in the room to go around and say what they did in exhaust. And that's so those people can feel their voice fill the room so they
Yeah.
can know they feel like they're a part of the conversation by
Yeah.
just entering and saying, "Hey, what do you do here? You are important. Okay, we do value you."
Yeah.
Okay. Then I would have gotten down to the critical information. I would have said, I would have looked around and said, "I noticed that of all of the men here, the identities are kind of not representative of kind of this cultural experience dealing with
Yeah.
the fade here." Now, a lot of people didn't grow up and, some people have supercuts as their kind of base
Yes.
knowledge of hair.
Fantastic Sam's.
Yeah. And, I teach a lot of hair workshops at our company because,
Oh.
yeah, I get called in a lot on my hair and I say, "Hey, isn't it nice to
Oh,
talk
wow.
about people's hair?" Yeah, this is my real hair. So
Of course
I
it
often
is.
have
Yeah.
to like, speak up for myself and say, "Hey, everybody's hair is different, but we do kind of have to honor the cultural influences and give proper credit." So that I do
Absolutely.
know. So when it came to that particular Travis issue, what I would say is, "Hey, let's include him and maybe 4 other white people who have also pioneered the fade. And then that way we can show there's kind of like a big group of people all coming together to say, hey, hair doesn't belong to any one person. We're all coming
Oh.
together and to say, hey, we wear the fade." Now, what I would say is I would encourage any members of the company and a Black ERG to kind of use that moment to speak up and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
we are kind of like the cultural creators of this movement that dates back here, here, here." And what I find interesting is I would ask that they bring some numbers to the table, maybe some
Yeah.
pivotal pictures, maybe some
Mhm.
snapshots throughout history to kind of
Yeah.
prove.
Kid and play.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, 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 yeah. I saw House Party. I was there. So kind of like showing like, hey, there were origins of this. It's interesting though, with this one in particular, I think this is maybe not the first time for sure, but one of the first times we're seeing this happen to Black men in our culture. So I
Mm.
think that's very interesting to see them kind of saying, "What? I've been rocking the fade."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and because we've seen it before with Kim K's signature braid or,
Yes.
things like that.
Haley Baldwin with the clean look with a bun and hoop earrings.
Yeah, it's very interesting dynamic. So I would be in there in the room to provide some pivotal pictures, some timelines, some snapshots. I would create a deck for sure to
Oh,
prove like,
gotta have a deck.
hey,
We love a
this
deck.
was already a thing. I think I would pull in some images. I remember going to the barbershop when I was little with my dad that I can't talk about.
Right,
And they would
right,
have these
right.
pictures and these numbers, and you would order a number
Yes.
haircut. And
Yes.
so no one there were no names, it was just the number. So
Yes.
I think one, if we want to kind of prop up Travis for this phenomenal hair moment, we might need to consider just adding him to one of those charts and giving him a number. I want to get the number 7 and it's Travis Kelce.
I think he's 44.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, make
I
the haircut a number.
actually hate that I know that.
That's true inclusion if we make the haircut a number, but when we single him out and give him a name, I mean, how many
Yeah.
times have you seen those black men on the S curl boxes? You don't know their names.
No. It could be Latravius.
It could
It
be Latravius.
you
Yeah.
know, it could be Levant.
Yeah, we should find them and give them their flowers this month.
I I want to talk about just and I want this to be a safe space for you.
Okay.
Um what was your experience like when you learned that Juneteenth would be coming to the office?
Well, honestly, I will. Okay. Thank you for the safe space. This is kind of very vulnerable for me to talk about.
Anytime.
A wave of emotions came through me.
Mm.
Number one being, oh no, people are going to want this day off.
Ah,
Because before it came to the office as a hard launch holiday, it was just kind of
yeah.
lingering around. And I said,
Yeah, it was
eventually,
a thing for the blacks.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of one of those people that said, oh, okay. I understand the origins of it. There were some people somewhere who hadn't got the message, and some people made sure that they got the message. And I said, I get it. But I was kind of in that critical first batch who knew. So I kind of celebrate the regular Emancipation
Ah,
Day. So,
yeah.
I understand. I understand. I haven't mapped back my origins to the people that didn't know yet.
Okay.
So I can't quite claim, you
Mm,
know,
mhm,
and I
mhm.
understand the camaraderie nature around it. I get it.
Yeah.
No fun if the homie can't have some. I get it. I'm down. So
When I met you last night, baby, before you opened up your gap, I had respect for you, lady.
yeah,
But now I take it all back
yeah, yeah.
because, well, you gave me all your, you even leave your number on the cabinet. And I promise I will give you a per my previous email call.
Doesn't that sound like freedom in America? Yeah. So I get it. So I was a little nervous. I said, I know it's coming. They're going to want the day off. And so now I'm kind of in this battle. I'm so glad I can be vulnerable here. I'm kind of in this battle where it's like,
Mm.
well, hey, we have to open this up to everybody now. If this is a
Dude,
national
okay. So
holiday,
yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah. So
So
I don't know if
what
you
are some initiatives that you've done in the office to open it up for everybody?
well, number one, visuals. I don't think that maybe Black people should be the only one on the visuals for Juneteenth. Get everybody on there
Okay.
because Juneteenth as a country is our whole entire country's issue. So if we could just
Uh-huh.
have everybody represented in that
Everybody?
branding, everybody represented in that branding. Yeah, everybody. Because even if you think about it, even the slave
Tabitha?
owners, yeah, everybody. Even the slave owners had a pivotal role because if those slave owners
Right.
hadn't have kept it from them, there wouldn't have been no
Mm.
Juneteenth. So we kind of have to kind of,
So family portrait.
yeah, we got to kind of circle back to those families. I said, we're going to keep this on the low. And we
Do
kind of,
they wear the costume of the slave owner then in the picture just to differentiate? Just so we're clear on roles?
while we do have some dress up time in the office, we do kind of do some reenactments.
Yeah.
There are no cameras allowed for those because we don't want our company to get canceled, but it is just kind of a vulnerable time for
Oh,
people to kind of stay true to history. And you can kind of come with whatever inspires y'all.
okay. Have you ever considered an altar? Building an altar in the office to the formerly enslaved, just as a way, an
Oh,
exercise of
no, I
atonement.
haven't. I haven't. Tell me more. Give me more suggestions. Maybe we should have an agenda and a meeting about this and kind of build this initiative out.
Well, I've heard some members of the formerly enslaver community
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
speak to them being haunted on Juneteenth
Oh,
by the former enslaved of their enslaver line.
okay.
And then what the problem though is that now when they come to work on June 19th, they're completely ineffective,
I
right?
see.
Because they're reeling from the poltergeist
Okay.
of right? They're
And it's kind
reeling
of
from the
hard for them to,
poltergeist of Lucy and Willie who
yeah.
slid down the banister the night before.
Yeah,
And now they're
yeah.
here in the office. They're unkempt. They're unfocused. And now
Yeah.
we've lost a day of productivity because of a day of negrotivity, right?
Yeah. You know what? I am going to rush this alter initiative because one, it'll bring people back into the office.
There you go.
And two, any chance we can get to kind of collect some of those spirits. And,
Yep.
hey, if we collect kind of like some old slave spirits, it might foster an environment for more work to happen in the office.
There you go. Yeah. Because that
And I'm not saying that we implore the slave module.
No, not at all. I would never. But this brings us to a full circle moment, which was that we discussed earlier about how the actual original company policy of really just working people with literally complete abandon and keeping tabs actually set up America for the company efficacy that it continues to operate under. So it really is a full circle. It's a full circle moment. And who better to actually get insight from than those who actually were there, right?
Exactly.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, and I know this is a dirty word, so I'm ready. We do here at Small Doses, we have talked to Chris Smalls, who is the head of the Amazon Labor Union, and I would love to hear from you about unions and where you feel they fit into the landscape that you are in.
Personally, I have two answers.
Okay.
One, the one I know that I'm supposed to say, which is I support unions. I support people coming together to speak on behalf of people. Now, the second thing that I want to say is there's a lot of things you have to think about when starting a union, okay? You're essentially starting another structure. So, are you ready to kind of take on this extra pivotal workload when you could be using that energy for your actual job? So, sometimes I kind of question, like, hey, is you being a part of this union taking away from your job responsibilities? There's a lot of organizing that you have to do. There's a lot of outside meetings. You're not paid for this. Sometimes there's union dues, and people can kind of think of a structure to compensate their top leaders, but it all gets like a little messy. About the idea of having a representative or a representation for people in the workplace to kind of go to the company. I like to think we have an open door where you can just come in and say, hey, here are some issues that I'm having. I don't see why you have to gather 5,000.
Can we actually role play that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Come
Well,
on.
actually, your door would be open. Your door would be open.
Yeah.
Your door would be open. You feel like that type of manager.
Yeah.
So I'm knocking, but I'm knocking on an open door, you guys. I'm knocking on an open door.
Yeah.
Hey, Corporate Erin.
Doors open. Come on in. It's so good to see you. Good morning. Hi.
So I just wanted to do a quick touch base because I have been feeling a bit underserved at the company, and it's really starting to feel like a union would be the next step. But I wanted to come and talk to you first.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you right here. I know we're role playing, but I'm going to give you some pivotal notes, okay? If you can use some more core language, like drilling down, core competencies, and kind of give yourself kind of like a compliment sandwich. What are you doing for the company? And then the meat is going to be like, but I think that's, and then have another piece of bread that's like, but you're doing great, okay? So,
Okay.
So
All right. Let me try it again.
I've opened the door. Come on in.
Hey, Corporate Erin.
Hey.
So I just wanted to first say that I'm really thriving in a number of specific areas within the structure of our company.
Nice.
There are some places that have been giving me pause
Okay.
that are causing me to consider the necessity for a union.
Oh, okay.
I did really enjoy our company picnic and the sumo costumes that you all got after watching that episode of The Office,
Yes.
where Pam realized that she was in love with Jim.
Yeah.
And then Jim realized that he was in love with Pam. And also, we also learned at that time that Angela was actually having a relationship with Dwight in a very real way. So I know that that episode was the inspiration for this moment, and that made me feel good as somebody who did love The Office, and I even appreciated the British one as well.
Yeah. Great. Great. Thank you so much. I heard a lot of good things in there. Nice to hear
Mhm.
that you're thriving in specific areas. So I
Yeah,
heard you say that.
yeah.
Now, in terms of kind of like this union structure, have you spoken with like a direct report? Is this the first time? Am I the first point of contact for the big U word?
Yes, I wanted to come to you first because I know how important you are to the company,
Yeah.
and I know how clearly you understand the mission
Yeah.
and the upward directives of the ladder.
Yeah, and I'm on your side, but I do have to ask a couple of pivotal questions just in case I need to chase it up to leadership. Okay. Are there people that are joining you in on this initiative? Do you kind of already have a core group started?
I'm not sure that I feel comfortable answering that question as much as it seems like your next question is going to be who.
Okay. Well, I like to see that you're thinking ahead. That's why we have you here. Okay. You always are a great forecaster.
Mm,
Okay. So I'm not going to say, I don't need to know who.
okay,
Okay.
okay,
But I mean, if you do kind of want to anonymously send me an email and kind of let me know, that'll be great. But
got it.
I don't have to know who. But
Okay,
and I don't want to discourage you from starting a union, but just understand that unions can kind of take away from the company on the public side. They can kind of affect kind of business in a different way that some people don't understand. It can affect the stocks, it can affect public
okay.
opinion of a company, and it kind of
Oh,
puts, I think of it, we're like a family here, right?
oh
So
yeah,
think
of
of it
course.
like with your family, sometimes you don't want everybody knowing your family's business. So sometimes you just put,
Right,
your uncle in the back room and close the door. And we have companies say, don't go back there. Okay. But
right,
we're working on it. When company leaves, we let uncle out and we say, okay, get back out here, uncle. Let's continue working on some things. So
right.
that's kind of one of the reasons we just kind of want to keep as much as we can kind of here where we can all work on it
Okay.
together, leadership and the employee base working together. If the
Uh-huh.
employees are working without leadership, I don't see how any initiatives or any comms or anything are going to be successful because you have to fit your union into
Uh,
our strategic communications plan. So we
oh,
have a very lofty way that we communicate here from the C suite to the management to our senior
yeah.
leadership team to the board. So it's going
Okay.
to take some time
Slack.
to move these initiatives forward. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. You got some good administrative chops to kind of head up a union here.
Well, I learned from the best,
Okay.
from
Okay.
you.
Now, what I will say is that if you do go forward with this union, can you not tell them that I encouraged you in any way and that, our relationship is just professional as it pertains to the work? And I'm very
Oh,
happy to kind of lead you and mentor you in pertains to the work. But anything
oh,
outside of that, I will ask that we just kind of keep it kind of not outside of here. Okay. But we are a
oh,
family and I love you. So keep me posted.
oh.
Keep me
It's
posted.
okay. Yeah. And scene.
Good, good, good,
Okay.
good,
Thank you
good.
so much. And I feel like our listeners really will resonate with that,
Oh, yeah.
because so much of that was um just representational of the ways in which the corporate structure attempts to talk without really actually talking.
Interesting.
And yeah. But it's a skill set that some of us don't have, but that when you do have, it really allows you to move without really moving.
It's interesting. I've heard that before, and I
Okay.
guess if I do kind of consider it and take the analysis of it, I think there was a lot of movement in that conversation. Even though
Mm,
we kind of ended back, I think I just pinged it back to you. You have some
yeah.
pivotal decisions to make now, but I can definitely understand how some people have said something about like defensiveness, or there was just some other
Mm,
words that I didn't understand, devil's
okay.
advocate, or just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't know, turning it back up to I don't know. I get a little confused.
Deflection.
Yeah, sometimes I get a little
Yeah.
confused by it, the way I guess people are getting confused by me. So we're all confused. So we have that in common. So for everybody that's confused by me, I am also confused.
It's a confused community. Speaking of community, my Patreon community definitely has questions for you. And
Awesome.
so we're going to head on over to the SEAL Squad.
My husband books kind of these excursions where I can work while I'm there. So,
Oh.
sometimes we kind of take advantage of this work from home structure. And so it's like, hey, if I could do the same thing in Italy for a couple of weeks, then why not?
Live it up, girl.
Yeah.
Once you've already addressed it and HR gaslights you, that
Yeah.
means HR, the R now stands for racist. And instead of it being for
Okay.
human resources, it actually stands for hella racist.
Hella racist.
So
Okay, that's new. I haven't heard that before. Okay. Every time I think of consciousness, I think of like planets and stars. And so when I think of like
Orion. Yeah.
when I think of humans at work, I think of like you're performing a role, you just do that job. But if you like care about humanity, then pick a company that cares about humanity.
Well, Corporate Erin, I really appreciate you taking time out today to talk with us. I know that you have a lot of initiatives that you are pushing throughout the day. And so I hope that we have not derailed any of your goals for today. But is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with? Any words of wisdom? Any, inspirational posters that you hang on your desk? Like, is there anything that you want to give us to
Yeah,
carry
well,
us through?
my
To be
favorite
to be the
phrase.
lanyard that we hang from?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I think it's very important that we have these pivotal one-on-one conversations. Happy to sit down and
Yeah.
talk about everything at a very high level.
Yes.
I want people to
Yes.
kind of reframe what it means to circle back, follow up, and close the loop. I want people to understand,
Mm.
what does that mean for you? What are some things that you need to circle back to? What are some
Hmm.
things that you need to follow up on? And what are some things that you need to close the loop on?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
sometimes these phrases just aren't all about us corporate people. If you find yourself, if you're not in a corporate world at all, there's still the need to kind of circle back. Some people need to circle back to some dreams. Some people need to follow up on the next step of accomplishing something. And some people
Mm.
need to close the loop on some relationships. So I would say that is my lanyard that I would kind of want to leave.
There you all have it. You can check out more Corporate Erin at Corporate Erin and so many other places, none of which are The Office. And there you have it. I hope that was just as much fun for y'all as it was for us. Remember to circle back, follow up, and close the loop. All right? Per my previous email. Are y'all enjoying the conversation? Oh, I know you are. That's why I need you to circle back, follow up, and close the loop on watching it on Patreon.